Hello, happy Saturday. Hello. My name is Carissa Tracy. I am a pediatric physical therapist and founder and owner at Pearl Pediatric Therapy. If you have found us, that means you have found our Facebook page. This is our home. This is where we post videos for families, for resources, and this is where you can also, if you'd like to book with us, you can just book right here on our Facebook page. We have a book now button and a live schedule. So I just come on here and share things with you guys that I feel like would be helpful, and this topic has come through so much. So if you are new to this Talk and Thrive series, welcome. It is our live Facebook series, and here at Pearl, we get the talk from you, and we thrive after. So you guys send in topics and then I send back information to y'all. So that's really what this series is all about. If you guys are coming on live, if you will say hello, type something, say hi, tell me where you're from, tell me if you're a parent or a therapist and why these videos are helpful and important to you. If you are watching on a replay, go ahead and type replay below. It helps me know who's here and I can follow up with you if you have any questions. Hey, Lisa. So today's topic is just impulsivity in toddlers. We often see it with tripping and falling. So this might look like a history of, typically they might have been like maybe a W-sitter as a younger toddler. Maybe they were a little bit late to walk and get up on their feet, but I see it a ton with toddlers. And it kind of goes hand in hand. Those that are tripping and falling, they also kind of have impulsivity, or they kind of are quick. So for example, if you lay out like a hopscotch, they just run across. Or if you say, you know, can you jump on these 3 circles, and you have a cue, they run across, or they don't even jump forward, they just kind of jump in the room. And so they're not really paying attention to what you're asking them to do. And so I kind of wanted to come on and talk about this today because there's so many pieces to the puzzle. If this is going on with your child, you need an evaluation by a PT to figure out kind of which puzzle pieces are the most important to your child. But I really wanted to come on and talk about it. So maybe this will at least like spark something in your mind or kind of help you figure out maybe what your child is needing. So if a child is rushing and they're tripping and they're falling, the first thing I look at is alignment. So parents, y'all have seen me, I've posted on W-Sit and why it's not good. Please educate your toddlers or anyone that's around them during the day. So daycare workers, caregivers, grandparents, babysitters, siblings if they're older, if you have teenage siblings that are watching younger ones, whatever the case may be, if you have babysitters that are, you know, high school age and maybe they're unaware, that W-sitting is a culprit for a lot of kids tripping and falling, because when they sit like that, when they stand, it gives them the pigeon toe appearance. So I really want to educate against W-sitting. So please, if you need more information on that, go back. Pearl has a written post with lots of pictures and explanation, and then we've also done a video on it because it's really important. So if your kid is tripping and falling and they seem a little impulsive and kind of all over the place, make sure that their sitting posture is okay. Make sure they're not W-sitting. Next thing I would go to is I've also seen in toe walkers. Toe walkers tend to be quite impulsive because they're up on those toes, and so they're trying to get to the next thing, and the whole thing that they need practice with is settling into their heels and slowing down. But in fact, those kids will kind of run and they're impulsive, or they're very smart. They're aware, you know, that their balance is a little bit off, and so I'll often see toe walkers not only rushing through things, but if I say jump and freeze, that's what's hard for them. You know, they can jump all day across the room or jump, but I would encourage you guys, if you have an impulsive toddler that seems like they're kind of all over the place, give them an activity where they have to stop, okay? And so let's talk about that a little bit. If you want to slow down an impulsive child, they're gonna need a cue. So some ideas could be, the most obvious that I start with is like a visual cue. So like those little poly dot rubber circles that you can buy and throw on the ground. If you're outside and you can draw and chalk, you know, little targets for them to jump to or stop. Stop when you get to the yellow circle and then draw a yellow circle. I've used hula hoops, throw those on the floor as a visual, you know, start in this circle and that's the green hula hoop. Start, you know, you're gonna end in this circle and it's a purple hula hoop or whatever. So visual, if you have an impulsive kiddo, whether you're a parent or a therapist, look at something visually to bring in where you can say, can you start on your special spot and then I want you to jump to the square. Give them a target that makes sense where they can see. Instead of, in our mind, we might be thinking, I need you to jump 12 inches. Well, kids, of course, you can't tell them that. So think of something visually you could use. The next thing, when you think of all the different senses, vision is the most obvious to me. Also think about auditorily. When you have an impulsive child, they are, their brain is going super fast. And so when I have an impulsive child, my directives to them are going to be brief, concise, and clear. And then I'm going to give moments of motor planning time. So I might say, can you stand on the start line? And then I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to wait for them to get on the start line. Let's say they're shuffling their feet and they're not at the start line. I'm going to say start line, and I'm going to decrease my words one more time. If they're still not there, I might point and say start. Okay, so y'all see how you can kind of bring in what they're hearing auditorily and make it simple so that they can participate. Let's say you want them to walk along a beam and then jump somewhere. You really want to stay away from, can you cross the beam and then jump to the blue circle? Right? Too much. So you might say, walk on the road, and you're pointing to the beam. Okay? When they get to the end of the beam, you might say, stop, and you might give them a little tap on their chest. So they're getting a little bit of a cue, like stop. And again, then be quiet and see if they can stop before you tell them about the jump that you know is next, right? So I hope this helps when you're walking a kid through any kind of obstacle course, whether they're your own child and you're playing and you're working on home programs that the physical therapist has said, hey, I need you to work on squatting or jumping or whatever they want you to work on, or you're a therapist yourself and you're trying to get through sessions. Remember that an impulsive child, they're not only in the moment, but they're in a different moment. Their brain is like, okay? So you kind of want to bring it back, okay? So that verbal input is important to keep minimal. And those processing breaks, super important. Okay, so we talked about visual cues, we talked about auditory. As far as touch, I just alluded to it a little bit in that example. If I'm going to help a child who's impulsive with my touch, it needs to be just a cue, and then I want to back away, right? Because I want to see if they can do it. So children that are impulsive, they tend to have balance issues because their head, they're not in the moment, they're kind of just rushing and ahead of the moment. And so again, if I need them to slow down, I might give them a cue on their chest, or I might cue their hips, or I might, if a child's really impulsive, it sounds counterintuitive, but I'm going to put maybe a balance board or something that slows them down, maybe a couch cushion, something that is a different surface to slow them down. They might need a tactile obstacle in their way to slow them down, and typically that means something that moves. So you've seen probably therapists, they'll use those rocker boards and they'll either have a kid belly crawl across it, hands and knees across it, walk across it if they're safe enough, or you just see the variation in texture. So often when I have an obstacle course, depending on what the child can do and how safe they are, I'm going to be right there. I love to be on a rolly stool right next to them so I can kind of go with them near the obstacle course, but I'm down on their level in case they need my help. But obstacle courses, when you're working on kids that are impulsive, you've got to mix up the variability of what they're stepping on, or they'll plow through it. So if you have a child, a toddler who's impulsive, stay away from a surface that's the same throughout, because they kind of go into that autopilot, if that makes sense. And then impulsivity can just fly because they're like, I know what a solid floor feels like, and they're not going to listen. They're going to run and go to the thing. But if you create an obstacle course that's like, you're going to crawl through a tunnel, then you're going to stand up on something that wiggles, then you have to step over something, you got to slow down, and every kind of obstacle that they get to is not only visually something different, but it's giving them tactile input. You might have to cue them and kind of help them with their balance in different places. And so it's going to slow them down. Okay, so we talked about some visual stuff that you could do. We talked about auditory and how you can help an impulsive child by slowing down your words, decreasing the amount of your words, and then allowing processing time. We just talked about obstacle courses and variability. Variability will help a child who's impulsive. Something that is the same throughout is not good for them because they will go into autopilot. I think the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about when you're dealing with toddlers who are impulsive and they're tripping and falling a lot is to understand that you are actually going to work on activities where they're standing still or having to stop their momentum. So I educate parents a lot and families a lot. Sometimes, you know, they'll have a child who can run across the playground, they can climb up the apparatus, they can slide down the slide, they can do all of these kind of big things, but they're coming to me because they trip and fall all the time. And so parents will be like, well, they seem strong, you know, they're on the playgrounds and they're running around and, you know, they can operate a swing, or, you know, they're giving examples of things they can do. But if you meet with a physical therapist, it's really apparent to us pretty early on. We can tease out which muscle groups they're struggling with and maybe what they're compensating with, and really actually slow the child back down to get them to work on the posture that they need before they get to the agility stuff. I found that most toddlers who are impulsive, they lack the postural control. So when we think about play for kids, we think of kind of two major categories, posture and movement. And so a lot of our impulsive kids are movers. I mean, they are just like all over the place. They like to move. But when you ask them to pause, you ask them to freeze, you ask them to hold a posture, super tricky for them. So a PT can address that for you guys, okay? And when you get a PT eval for a toddler who's impulsive and tripping and falling a lot, it's really neat because we can break down all the different positions and really, really change their norms for what they do throughout their day. We'll give you that information, and then we can progress the balance and the agility stuff in a safe way, because we can anticipate, okay, when I make this activity harder, this child might fall to the left or fall to the right, or I'm expecting them to fall in this manner. And so we're right there progressing things so that they are strong enough and they are safe enough to stop falling and stop tripping. So I think this is really, really important that I speak to this today. There's so many toddlers out there that are tripping and falling, and I really encourage you to get a PT eval if that's the case, because they will continue to have issues tripping and falling as they get older, and the agility that their peers require or that they're trying to mirror become more and more complicated. If your child is tripping and falling with walking or just running across the yard and you're seeing it more often than their peers, please give us a call for a PT eval for those toddlers. I hope this has helped you guys with impulsivity and ideas and ways to slow down your child and let them work on the posture instead of all that movement. They're movement dominant typically when they're impulsive, but we need to work on that postural control and that balance. So if this is helpful, y'all give a thumbs up when you watch on replay. If y'all have any questions, just send them in. If you need anything directly, you guys can always private message me on the Pearl Pediatric Therapy page. And my name is Carissa Tracy. I'm a pediatric PT and happy to help you guys. Happy to serve in this New Braunfels, Texas community. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday, and we'll talk soon. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.